It's a quick one for you. I'm back on my bullshit with cassette decks again. It's one of these, the dual well Sonys. I liked this one and I picked it up because it does Dolby S. What I'm also realizing is that these cassette mechanisms, I believe, are the same ones as in my other Sony dual well cassette deck, which still has problems. So if I'm lucky, I can get this one working and then just swap the mechanisms over, because I actually like that other deck better. Anyway, obviously these needed new belts, and I went ahead and ordered new ones and replaced them, but what I found is when putting the deck back together, I'd get that whole grinding thing. If you watch my video, I think it was from like 2019, where I did the restoration on that other dual well Sony deck. Part of what I learned from the service manual is these gears in the upper right up here, they've got to be oriented where they're like facing down like that, right? So the deck is basically, this is upright. That's what I thought was really just the thing that caused that grinding noise when you first turned the deck on. And of course the decks, you know, like neither of these wells would work correctly, tapes wouldn't advance or anything like that. It was just this nasty grinding, like something isn't right kind of sound. This is definitely part of that. You need to make sure that the gears are oriented like you're seeing here, which isn't called out in the service manual, which was rather frustrating. You just have to very carefully like look at the exploded view diagram. The other thing that I found though is that the position of this gear also matters. It needs to look like this. This arm thing goes around this weird pattern, I guess, in the middle of this big gear, and I think it has to do with tape direction. But if it's not set in the correct place, the deck will think that the tape is going in a different direction than the mechanics actually are set up for. So the trick is to make sure that this little nubbin, like this kind of notch in the gear, is in this little crook of the PCB right here. If that's lined up correctly, then you should be good to go, at least I think, because that's the way I got it to work on this deck. This deck is working perfectly now. I'm not going to take it apart again. And that black stuff in there, I actually think that's grease. The belts on both of these wells really weren't that bad. They came off in big pieces instead of turning into solid goo. So cleaning these up really wasn't that hard. So I'm hopeful that setting this gear like this is simply the trick. And you just got to kind of, by hand, move it all around to, get it clocked correctly. So let me throw this thing back together and we'll see if that did it. Okay, moment of truth. I've got just that B-side deck hooked up. And you see I've got the whole thing kind of exploded, but all the cables are hooked up. And I have to do it this way because of the way these mechanisms connect to the main circuit board. Like they've got these terminals that are just built right in, so they kind of slot on there. You can't just like use the cables and set it off to the side. So if you don't do it this way, then you actually have to mount the mechanism back on the front panel, and that's a pain. Whatever. Just let it rip. Got the finger on the button here. Oh, no grinding. Oh, I can't believe that. Let's grab a tape. We're doing crisscross as the test tape. Okay, here we go. Yeah, buddy. Can we go the other direction? Yep. Although, ooh, shit. Why am I only getting audio out of the left channel? Well, clearly I have more to fix. I've got the wiring all plugged back in the right way, I think. You can't see it, but it's behind this shield. Focus. This blue connector back in there is what gets the audio to and from the heads. This is the record side deck. All right, well, I'll figure that out, I guess. So here's the setup. I've got the microscope out and I'm using my OmniFixo clips to hang on to that connector. I've got some Kapton around the other wires. These are such fine wires, like I just don't want to risk screwing it up anymore, because if I ruin these wires, then that whole cassette mech is pretty much screwed at that point. I'd have to find a whole new head assembly, but whatever. Got the iron out, and I'm absolutely going to be going with the fine tip. on this one. Wish me luck. Yeah, that's ugly. It works, I'm not happy with it. Ended up kind of melting the connector there a little bit. Turns out those connectors are not heat proof. They're meant for crimps only. I also melted the wiring a bit there too. But I did get it to stick, and I just got to be super gentle with it, putting it all back into the deck. All right, here we go. Got it back together. Let's throw a little crisscross in here. Gonna make you jump. Hopefully this still is mechanically set. Yes, it is. Okay, cool. No grinding. I like that. Press play. Yes! Both channels. Why is the right channel lower? You know what? Let's. Does that look better? Oh yeah, that looks better. So that's just the music, I guess. Let's rewind a bunch. Rewind works. Belts are running good. The other problem that I had in that previous repair was that this gear would kind of chatter back and forth. But that's, you can understand why I'm interested in maybe taking these mechanisms and throwing them in that other deck. Here's another blast from the past. I picked these up at like half-price books a few years ago. I was never a big cassette user back in the day. In fact, I kind of hated cassettes. And these days, I definitely still do. All right, let's see what we get now. It's at the beginning of the tape. Yeah, there we go. They're playing in sync. All right, so that was crisscross. Audio levels look good. I'll have a listen to it, make sure that it sounds okay. But I'm feeling good about this one finally. What a relief. So of course, deck A also works as well. This one gave me a bit less trouble. Something I noticed though is I think whoever owned this previously pretty much only used deck B, or at least primarily, because you can even see the wear on the buttons, whereas there really isn't any on deck A. And when I went to clean like the heads and the rollers and the cap stands, the swab coming back from deck A was just like clean, there's nothing on it, but deck B, it was pretty dirty. What an adventure with this one. Dealing with those gears was just the biggest pain, and then having that wire snap off was just kind of the icing on the cake. Just further made me realize I hate cassettes. As always, thanks for watching.